second Ashes Test gets underway 4:30 a.m. on Thursday morning. So Wednesday night into Thursday morning, ball-by-ball commentary with the TMS team on Sports Extra and on BBC Sounds. It's a day-night test in Brisbane. So, as I said this the other day, from our point of view in the UK, it's brilliant because you get, if you're getting up sort of for breakfast, you're going to get a good 4 or 5 hours of play all until midday UK time. Now, that then also depends how much you want to watch and how painful it will be. But anyhow, England 1 down in the series after they were blown away in 2 days by Australia in Perth. We'll look ahead to Brisbane over the next hour in the company of Glenn McGrath and Michael Vaughan and Melinda Farrell. The problem I am finding, Michael, with a 2-day test means that you end up not far off trying to avoid doing the same show for 3 weeks until until the next one comes around.
Yeah, good evening. It's not often that I say when I come to Australia I want to see a bit more cricket, but I'm actually bored of playing golf. So if England could play a little bit better in Brisbane, let us have a bit more cricket, take it to the 4th or 5th day, it'd be much appreciated.
I am intrigued, Glenn, actually, because it sort of, on the one hand, feels a long time ago already, that first test, because it was so short and we've waited for this one. I'm wondering, have things calmed down in the Australian media over the last few days because that first test now feels like such a long time ago?
Yeah, I think it's calmed down a little bit. It's it does feel a long time ago, and unlike Forney, I appreciated a couple extra days at home. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Especially when Stokes has come out and said they're going to up it, then even more than what they did in that first test. But I haven't seen too much of a build-up. I know we're only a couple of days away now. It will start really building up, and especially going into a day-night test match where things are supposed to happen even quicker than it would in a normal test. So, it's going to be an exciting few days.
I'm going to hear from Ben Stokes very shortly. Glenn and Michael in Sydney at the moment, Mel in Brisbane. So what are the conditions like in Brisbane at the moment, Mel? What is the forecast looking like?
Well, before I say that, good evening, and can I just say how honoured I feel to be on the show with two such highly respected has-beens. I myself never was, so it's a real privilege for me as a never was to be with such illustrious has-beens. Look, it's as you would expect in Brisbane. It is steamy. It was a little bit nicer actually yesterday, but it's typical Brisbane steamy. There are storms around. They tend to come quite quickly, and we know how good the drainage is at the Gabba, so there's not really too much forecast around. There may be the odd shower or storm that builds up, but hopefully it won't interrupt play too much. Look, one thing that I will say is that we do expect usually a pink ball test to go very quickly. I am not so sure. I am wondering if we're going to see a pitch that's a lot more batter friendly than we might normally expect, a little bit like the pink ball test in 16-17 when Pakistan played, and they made 450 in the final innings. They fell short of Australia's target by 39 runs. I've been talking to one of the Australian players who does feel that this looks a bit similar. Maybe it might be a little bit overcooked. So it might not be what perhaps we would traditionally expect from a pink ball test in Adelaide.
Okay, and actually, I'll come on to the pink ball side of things in a little while. But as far as the pitch and the wicket is concerned, and we can do batting and bowling points of view here. So the pitch curator, Dave Sandersky at Brisbane, has said all indications are with the bit of heat around, the wicket will dry out a lot quicker. So you've got to make sure you keep enough moisture in it to last 5 days. We try and make our wickets pretty much the same for 4 and 5 day cricket. The aim is to provide a wicket where all players get a chance to perform their skills so that all facets of the game come into the match. Just park the pink ball if you can, Michael. What's Brisbane like to bat in at?
Oh, it can be hard at times with the ball just bouncing just off that length. I'll give England a little tip playing the big straight batted drives on the up early to a new pink ball, red ball, white ball in the Gabba is always a high risk. They went for that strategy in Perth and it didn't quite come off. So it's generally a good cricket wicket. And if it is going to be a good pitch, I mean, all the talk of maybe no spin, I'd be staggered if Nathan Lyon doesn't play. The pitch is good because the pink ball does get soft and you're going to need someone to bowl quite a lot of overs, particularly with the heat. So I would think that Australia will play the spinner. I guess the debate for England, will they bring in Shoaib Bashir or Will Jacks? But I've always thought that in Australia, most conditions are pretty similar. That for the first 20-odd overs, the ball will nip around a bit. There'll be a bit of swing. And if you can be still there around the 25th over mark, I think it was last year against India where Australia they were 89 for 3 after 30-odd overs with the pink ball. And then suddenly from the 30th over to the 80th over, they scored at 6 runs and over because it got easier, flatter, and a lot easier to score quickly. So that's kind of the narrative pretty much throughout Test match cricket. The new ball does a bit, you play it sensibly, you earn the right to score quicker after 20 overs. The game hasn't changed a great deal, chappers.
We're going to hear from Ben Stokes very shortly, but bowling then in Brisbane, Glenn.
Yeah. No, it's a pitch that bowlers enjoy bowling on it. Sure, there's going to be something in it. You still have to find that right length. The thing with the Gabba pitch is it always looks like it's got a good covering of grass and touring teams think, you got to bowl on that first. And there will be something in it, as there should be in every test wicket in that first session. But as Vaughan said, you fight through that, get to 25 overs, and there's plenty of runs to be had. And, we saw a recent Sheffield Shield match, day-night match, where Matty Renshaw got 100, Xavier Bartlett got 4 for. So it looks like there's a bit in it for both. But, as soon as that, I think, as Mel said, there's a lot of humidity around. I live just above Brizzy, and the storms and the humidity and the heat's been pretty tough. But that's going to make that ball move around even more. And under lights, just hearing a few guys that played in that Shield match, as soon as it got a bit darker, under light, that twilight, if the ball is new enough, it's going to do plenty, which is pretty standard for day-night tests. So. Yeah, hopefully it's not the same as that test wicket that they played Pakistan on, because that was just ridiculously flat. So hopefully a little bit in it, and the moisture in the air is going to make the ball move around. So there's a lot more you have to strategically thinking going into a day-night test than a normal test as well.
Plenty to get into. The make-up both sides. Joe Root's comments about whether an Ashes series really needs a pink ball test. But let's hear from Ben Stokes, belligerent, maybe you would say, after the defeat in Perth. Has his tone changed slightly? You decide when you listen to this interview from over the weekend in Brisbane.
We had some good conversations around the group. It wasn't like a sit down or get together. It's not the way that we sort of do things. It's about choosing opportunities and picking off individuals at the right time to do it, and just encouraging those conversations. And I feel that's a really good way of not only trying to get messages across, but also the best way that we feel is to be able to reflect on things. Sometimes if you feel you get into an environment where you're all sat around on a huddle and all that kind of stuff, you end up, people might just say things for the sake of saying it.
A lot of the debate as well after Perth was around the manner of the defeat and some of the dismissals. And then after the game, you pointed out that the way Travis Head batted was the way that Australia won it. In terms of the method, did you look at Perth and think it was more execution? And what have you learnt about batting in Australia from that first test?
I think you're emotional at the end of a game, whether that be nice emotions or good emotions. So you don't have that time of reflection, whether it be good or bad. So that's why it's important for me and the rest of the group to be able to have time to reflect on it. So look, Travis Head played an amazing knock. There's no hiding away from that. But that's not the overriding contribution as to why we didn't end up getting the result. We did some amazing things throughout that test match. The way that we bowled in the first innings, we were 100 for 1, and we end up putting the score on the board that we believed was definitely defendable. But we all know, and we can look back on that, and we have done that, and said there were moments in that game where we could have been a lot better to help us gain even more of advantage that we did have, and we know that and we understand that. And the important thing that you need to do from that as a team and as individuals is learning from that. We've identified those moments, we've spoken about it as a group, and that's what you can do. Execution, could we have been better at executing what we wanted to do? Definitely. But again, we've got a mindset of playing the game, which is looking to put the opposition under pressure, but also trying to absorb that. And sometimes when you go out there and you make a decision, it doesn't always pay out or work in the way that you want it to. And that's what the key for the rest of this tour is making sure that we stay true to our beliefs of how we play our cricket, but also we do know that we could have definitely been a lot better in certain areas throughout that test match.
Some of the criticism that you've had in the past few days is quite personal. Words like arrogant being thrown around. That's quite emotive. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, look, you can call us rubbish, call us whatever you want to be, and we didn't have the test match that we wanted to. Again, we were great in passages of that game. I think arrogant might be a little bit too far, but we'll take the rough with the smooth. But yeah, I'd rather the words like rubbish, but arrogant, sometimes you're a bit like,
So that's Ben Stokes talking to Stephen Shemmelt, the BBC's chief cricket reporter. Do you think the tone has changed a little bit, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely right. When you lose a test match so quickly, there's only 2 times actually I've seen Ben Stokes on a cricket field look a little bit lost, and that was Carlos Brathwaite many years ago when he hit him for 4 sixes. And then that afternoon in Perth, he just was lost for ideas because Australia played so well, and Travis Head came and played an Ashes innings that we'll talk for a long, long time. But it's that absorption impressed me, because this England team under Ben and Baz, the way that they absorb pressure is completely different to many other sides. The way that they try and absorb the pressure is go on the attack and be really aggressive and try and get a partnership going quickly. And that was their downfall. Last week, it was their downfall in 2023 at Edgbaston in the second innings, at Lords in the first innings. And this is what you're looking for in this England side now, because I've said it recently and I keep saying it, they have the tools to be very successful here, and they will get themselves into a position of strength in test matches in Australia again. But will they have that mindset and that ruthlessness to really know when they're on top and just read the situation and play smarter cricket? That's all many ex-players are saying. It's just that smartness required. When you get on top, it's so hard to get on top of in Australia. And I think it's 1986-87 when you go back nearly 40 years, that after 4 sessions in 86-87, England were on top. We haven't been since Perth. And after 4 sessions in Perth, we were all sat there 100 for one thing, and just play out that afternoon, see off Scott Boland's 4 or 5 over bursts, get one more spell into Mitchell Starc. Cameron Green, he wasn't bowling a lot. Nathan Lyon was injured. You've got a debutant in Doggett. Usman Khawaja was off the field. You think, please just play smartly, just for 2 or 3 more hours, and then you've got Australia exactly where you'd want them. They didn't do that. They made mistakes, and they're now 1-0 down. And we go back to 1954-55, chappers, when England went 1-0 down. Len Hutton's series. On that occasion, they came down here by boat. And when you start going back that far, you know that England have got a tall order to come back from going 1-0 down here.
You have plenty of meetings on the boat on the way there, wouldn't you? on your approach, I would imagine. Look, he said some things that he regrets, and maybe even the tone straight after the defeat in Perth. And as Michael said, Mel, he looked a bit, for only the second time in Michael's view, a little bit lost. And he's not the first England captain to look like they're caught in a washing machine in the opening test of an Ashes series, is he?
Well, no, I think it's almost par for the course when you look at the hostility of the environment. I think it's important maybe for people to know as well, but Ben Stokes put himself up to do media yesterday. He actually wanted to talk to everyone himself and take on that responsibility. He didn't make the apologies. Obviously my tongue very much in my cheek when I was referring to the has-beens. Yeah. He wanted, to redress all of that. And I kind of think that's a real sign of leadership, or a very good show of leadership by him. And you sometimes do see in difficult times that the batting coach and the fielding coach sent out to do media when no one really wants to talk. So I think that's pretty important to acknowledge. And clearly some of the stuff has stung. You talk about being in the bubble and not paying attention to the outside world, but obviously some of those calls of being arrogant, probably more so from the English side of things, may have really struck a chord. And I don't think they want to be seen that way. But it's interesting what Michael said about those particular times. I've done a lot of thinking about this in watching England over the past few years, and so much of it has come down to whether they succeed or they fail has been recognising moments and being able to sense that moment. And we saw it go awfully wrong. They got it wrong at the Oval, for example. They got it wrong in Perth. You look back at that first test against India at Headingley, where they got it absolutely right. On that occasion, they did sense the moment when it came to that fourth innings. And so there's the thing that makes that relevant here is that with a day-night test cricket's often about recognising moments, sure, but I think it gets intensified in a pink ball test because the conditions from day to night, when the ball's doing something, when it's not, when it's good for batting, we've seen more unusual declarations because teams want to be bowling at certain times. So that whole game management becomes an even bigger factor in a day-night test. And being able to recognise moments is, I think, huge. And you actually, when the Australians have been talking over the past couple of days, Travis Head, Marnus Labuschagne, the number of times that word moments came up was really significant. So that's something that the Australians have learned by playing more pink ball tests than any other team and have great success rate.
And if you want to seize those moments, if you want to put those moments, make sure you're on the right side of those moments, then you need clarity. And in what was quite an honest set of interviews from Stokes, where he took quite a lot of stuff on himself, Glenn. He said, in that first test, I'm the person who makes decisions about how we go out there and operate. I'm the one who gives the plans to the bowlers. I wasn't as clear as I normally am. The key thing for me is to be completely crystal clear with my bowlers. He's taking it all on, again, that's leadership, isn't it? He's trying to take it all on his shoulders and protect his attack.
Yeah, I think with Stokes, it's great. You're the leader. You've got to do that. And occasionally, when he said has-beens, sometimes you say things that you don't really mean in the media. Sports people aren't perfect, and then the media jumps on it and makes a big deal of it. So I have no issues with that. Things happen, but good to see him taking responsibility. But my biggest thing with that first test was England have a style of play that they want to play. There's talk about arrogance, whether that's right word or wrong words. They want to play this way. And when you're front runners, they're amazing front runners because they just take the game away from the opposition. They destroy them. But the difference between a good team and a great team is being able to adapt to conditions. And the two biggest things that I took out of that first test, which England really need to improve on, is they didn't adapt to the conditions. That second innings, they played the shots that they wanted to play rather than adapting to the conditions and the ball that the bowlers bowled. So they have to get away from this is the way I want to play, even if the conditions don't suit. So they've got to be adaptable and being able good enough. They're good enough players, obviously, to be playing at this level. So they need to adapt to the conditions rather than the conditions adapt to them. And the second thing was they didn't learn as the game went on. The way the Australians bowled to, say, Atkinson and Carse, they got away from bowling that length. They bowled short. All of a sudden, the game looked completely different. With Carse and Atkinson put on an important partnership there. And then when Head came out, started taking them on, they went back to the exact same plan that didn't work for the Australians. So you've got to be adaptable, but you also have to think on your feet and watch what the opposition does. Okay, that doesn't work, so I'm not going to do the same thing. So, I want to see England come out and have that adaptability, learning on their feet rather than say, this is the way we play the game. Conditions make no difference. We're going to go out and play it. And if they do that, that's why their record is 50-50 with this style of play, which I'm a big fan of this style of play, but you've got to think and you've got to adapt. You've got to be a little bit smart.
But is not adapting the equivalent of arrogance, Michael? Because as individuals, sorry, Glenn, go on, you do it first then. Because as individuals, they aren't arrogant men. They're good men. They are nice people to be around. You know, we all know, we could all list lots of arrogant sports people, I'm sure. They are not an arrogant. They are a good group of lads. So, but then is not adapting a kind of arrogance.
It's interesting there, Mark. I always say sports people that talk up how they're going to play are confident. If they turn around afterwards and tell you how they played, that's arrogance. So there's confidence and arrogance. How you play, how you're going to play. I love sports people coming out and being confident and saying this is what we're going to do. How they've played, what they achieved, what they didn't achieve is not up to them. That's up to everyone else to judge how well you performed. And so over the past, my little issue with Bazball, and they keep coming out and saying how good they are and how they're changing the game and how they're doing this, how they're doing that. That's my issue with that. And yeah, you know, I want to see sports people playing without fear, backing themselves, but not getting rid of pressure, pretending, oh no, there's no pressure, no accountability. So there's a few things there, whether that's confidence, arrogance, there is a fine line there sometimes. So I guess that's up to the individual to judge.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Chad. They're not arrogant people. They're actually a really good set of guys playing for England. They're just playing a style that we've never seen before. I will give them a little tip. It's not working. So they're the great entertainers at the minute, but they haven't won a 5-match series in this time in the last 3 or 4 years. And at the Oval, Mel rightly brought up those 5 wickets for 30 on the last morning. They should have won that series 3-1. At Perth in the first innings, we're forgetting about the first innings where England were 160 for 5. Should easily have got 260, 270. They lost 5 for 12. So the method didn't work. In the second innings, they lost 9 wickets in a session. So the method's not working. So if they want to win here in Australia, yes, be flamboyant when you get that opportunity. But if you're going to be flamboyant all the time, in any sport, whatever the sport you play, if you play one style, whether it's football, whether it's rugby, whether it's hockey, whether it's cricket, and this England side, so far, they've played one style, apart from when I saw them face Jasprit Bumrah in the summer. And when they faced Jasprit Bumrah in the test match, that, in my opinion, the best was bowling in Bumrah, England were very sensible. They almost knew that he could only bowl either 24 or 30, well, 36 balls max. And they thought, we'll see him out. Played some nice shots because he went looking for the wickets because he was brought on to get the wickets. So I look at someone like Mitchell Starc. When Mitchell Starc comes into the attack, Mitchell Starc is the aggressor. He's got to get wickets. So he's going to go searching the wickets. So if you leave a few outside off stump, there's no way in a million years that Mitchell Starc's not going to bring one straight because he's there to get wickets. And he's just having that sense and that game awareness. The arrogance is at times with this England side when they bat in the middle. Not when they bowl. I think they're quite a sensible bowling unit. They're sometimes quite defensive because they want to just bowl dots. But I look at someone like Harry Brook, and it was the over before lunch on day one. And he danced down and whacked one over mid-off. Now it came off and we all went, oh, wonderful shot. But really, is that the way to play Test cricket? And the first morning to dance down and whack one over mid-off? I'm not too sure. I've not seen it done in the history of the game. Harry Brook is a bit genius at times, and he plays a game that's beyond many. But I just think in that moment, when you're just before lunch, surely sense tells you've just got to get in, make sure you're not out and you walk off. Ben Duckett, actually, in the second innings, just before lunch on day 2, bowling was bowling, and he danced down to try and whack him. He got hit on the elbow. And then there was a big LBW shout, he lost his foot movement and he just looked a little bit ruffled because he'd been hit on that elbow, and he gets straight out after lunch. Not saying that ball to Scott Boland wasn't a beauty. It was, but you kind of look at that dancing down. And this England side, they dance down. If the ball does anything, they feel that you've got to run towards the danger. And that's, you know, the great saying from Baz McCullum. It's exactly the way that Baz McCullum used to play. He used to dance down to try and hit off length. I'm not too sure that's the sensible way to go here in Australia when the ball's just zipping around just sharply on the regular occurrence that we saw in Perth. Playing the old school way. I'm not saying go into your shell. I'm not saying play like Boyks. I'm not saying play like Cookie all the time. But please use your sense when the ball's just zipping around slightly.
Let's bring the pink ball back into this then and talk a little bit more about that. Because, Mel, Australia's record in pink ball tests, if you are an England fan, is something to be very, very wary of. Overall, in pink ball tests, played 14, won 13.
Yeah, they've played more than anyone. It was here really that the whole concept kind of took hold, and they've stuck stubbornly with it, making sure that there is a day-night test, largely because of the different time zones in the country and wanting to have prime time cricket when it's not outside of the school holiday period on the East Coast where there's a big population. So Australia have invested in it, and it means they've had pink ball rounds in the Sheffield Shield as well. So the players just have more experience with it, and it's still a relatively small sample size. You're not talking about a huge amount of games, but a couple of players that have exceptionally good records with it. Marnus Labuschagne has a great record in it with the pink ball. Mitchell Starc has an outstanding reputation, and he has no idea why. If you ask him, he'll tell you he doesn't know why. I think it's just that he's quick, he's left arm tall, and because the pink ball actually swings a bit later, that becomes an even more potent weapon. Scott Boland also has a really good pink ball record. So they've had a lot of success with it, and it's not easy for teams to come in. Australia don't play with it all the time, but I think a lot of it comes back to what I was saying too about the moments, in that they understand the whole rhythm of the game, because it does tend to have a different rhythm to red ball test match cricket. So I think the fact that it's a format that's not played often, but their experience is just so much more than anyone else, and they understand when you need to be doing things. It all sounds fine in theory, but you can sort of say, well, we want to be batting at this particular time or bowling at this particular time. But it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes it doesn't start hooping around under lights. So I think it's more about just really recognising the second that something different starts to happen with that ball, and being able to change your plans or move your plans around that.
I hope I'm not being too negative here, Michael, but do you know what slightly concerns me in the build-up to this is the different reactions of two players who've been asked about it. So Joe Root, and I know what he's saying here, but was asked about a pink ball test. I personally don't think it adds anything. It's successful and popular here. Australia have got a good record here, and ultimately, from 2 years out, it's going to be there. It's part and parcel of making sure you're ready for it. But does a series like this need it? I don't think so. But it doesn't mean it shouldn't be here either. So there's a wariness there. Travis Head, on the other hand, we've embraced it. We've been able to put on a good product, play really well with it. Pink ball, white ball, red ball, who really cares? Does it need it? Does it not? It's a great spectacle. We're going to have huge crowds again. I think it's great for the game. It's like we're already going into it in a bit of a, oh, crikey, pink ball. They're going into it, brilliant, bring it on. Here we go.
Yeah, I actually agree with Joe. I don't think the Ashes does need a pink ball game. He's just asked a question. He's answered it honestly. So we shouldn't.
I'm not in that sense. But it's more actually Travis Head. We don't care. Pink ball, white ball, red ball. Bring it on. We're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, but let's just give the England fans out there a small glimmer, chappers. The one game that Australia have lost with the pink ball was at the Gabba, when Shamar Josie bowled one of the great spells. We were there, and it was incredible. I do give England a bit of a warning sign though, because Australia they looked like they were kind of on the beach that week. They were 2-0 up in the series, and they weren't quite on it. There was a lot of tired bowlers. This Australian side, they're not going to. I don't think they're going to play any worse than they did in Perth. That, for me, was England's great opportunity, because Australia were without Cummins and Hazel. They're still not there. I mean, Mel and Glenn will tell you more about Usman Khawaja's situation, but I think Australia will be stronger this week. So whatever England do, they have to play a lot better than they did in Perth. They've got to play a stronger game for longer periods. It's all the talk of the batters and the way that they play, but I had real great concerns about the bowling unit in the second innings. I know they only had 30-odd overs rest, but they didn't bowl a great deal on day one. And I know the emotions of bowling Australia out the first days of an Ashes test match, that can kind of get to you, and then you're bowling pretty much a few hours later. But the paces were so far down, and if the heat is exactly what it's going to be, and it's not going to get any cooler, it's not going to be something like Perth, which was a cool week for Perth conditions. I have a condition. I have a bit of a worry or two about the England bowlers being able to cope with the heat, because I'll keep going back to it, chappers, that this England side just haven't played enough cricket. They haven't, and it's not playing all the games, but they just haven't spent enough time in the field. The skill sets of bowling or batting, you can work on that in the net situation. I'm more concerned about the bodies being out in the field, because they just haven't been out in the field for long enough periods. And it was just that second innings in Perth where I looked at the bowling paces, I thought, oh, this isn't a great sign. So it's not just the batting that's got a little bit of an issue.
I thought you started that answer with, let's give the England fans some hope.
Yeah, but then I had to be truthful.
I mean, it went downhill quite quickly, that answer.
Apologies.
I'll come to the makeup of the team very shortly, but and this is linked to the pink ball as well. Alistair Cook pointed out in the Times, Atkinson and Carse haven't played a pink ball test. Jamie Smith hasn't played a pink ball test either, Glenn. 4 of the others have only played one. Just from a bowling point of view, to have never, and we contrast that with, as Mel pointed out, Mitchell Stark's unbelievable record with a pink ball. That's a huge difference. And how, I know they'll be in the nets with a pink ball and so on and so forth, but how quickly you need to adapt to a pink ball, how different it is as a bowler.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I didn't get to bowl with a pink ball, so I can't speak from experience, but I agree with what Vorney was saying there, that you need to spend time out in the middle. And it's the same with the pink ball. You need to spend time out there in the middle. You can train and practice all you want in the nets. That first game of the year, you still pull up stiff and sore. So you need to be bowling. You need to be batting out in the middle, different mindset. So that's, I think, an issue to start with. The pink ball, it's about timing. When you're bowling, when you're batting, makes a big impact on the game itself. And we've spoken a little bit about Mitchell Stark. If you thought he was a handful in Perth, he's you can times that, you can double that with the pink ball in his hand. So it's going to be interesting to see how the English players go about it. It is completely different, and this will be a good opportunity to see how well they can adapt, can adjust to conditions. So, normally when the ball's doing plenty, moving around, the confidence of the bowler goes through the roof. So that's an upside there. If you're running in and it's flat, it's not doing much, it's hard work. As soon as that ball starts swinging, your confidence goes up, and it's a different sort of mindset for the bowlers. So hopefully that's a positive for the English bowlers that haven't bowled in these conditions before. But it's going to be interesting. So as soon as afternoon storms have been rolling through southeast Queensland there for the last week or so, and the humidity goes through the roof and everything else. So that conditions, and when it's hot and humid like that, it can drain you, especially if you're not used to it.
This is also going to be an England attack, Mel, that will have no Mark Wood, which is a huge miss in the pink ball. He took 9 wickets when he last played in a day-night test against the Aussies in 2022 in Hobart. And it's also a big miss because, as we mentioned on previous shows, the whole England plan was to target this series and target Australia with pace, and they've lost one of their main guns.
Yeah, and when I was in Durham, sort of towards the end, like in September, I got the sense up there that his knee was continuing to blow up once he reached really high pace. And I think that's kind of what's happened here. He was limping around, had it all in like a brace yesterday at the Gabba. And, we might only see one more test out of Wood if he's able to play at all. So it is a huge loss. They had a really, really long training session yesterday, England. They've been there the last couple of days at the Gabba, and they trained the house down last night, sort of under lights in particular. But having watched it as well, I actually hope that I hope Ben Stokes decides to open the bowling himself, because he looked really good with that pink ball. And without Mark Wood there, I just think he's a really good option with that new ball. And I was like Vorney, I was tracking those speeds as well. And you saw, comparing them, say Mitchell Starc, when he came back and bowled in the second innings, because they didn't have very long off, his average speed probably dropped by 2 or 3 kilometres per hour. But the English bowlers are dropping, you're talking like more than 10 Ks in a few instances as well. So that is definitely something that I think they're going to have to look at. And for me, the interesting selection for England's bowling is going to be the spin question, because I don't know, I could be wrong, but I have a feeling that it could be a test where both sides are going to need a spinner if this wicket is as flat as perhaps it could be. And then you've got the interesting question of Shoaib Bashir and Will Jacks, who bowled a lot in the nets yesterday, and actually both looked pretty good, to be honest. The ball wasn't doing much, but that's going to be, for me, I think, a really key selection point, whether they want to strengthen their batting and their batting depth with Will Jacks, or if they want to go with the spinner that they've spent the last few years investing in so heavily, when he wasn't being able to, be first choice spinner or second choice spinner at Somerset.
Go on then, Michael. What's given all those issues that Mel's brought up there? What's the makeup of the England attack then?
Well, I think we'll find out straight away whether they're going on the. You got to remember, the Baz bowlers generally go on the positive side of selection. If they pick Will Jacks, they're picking it Jacks because they're worried about the runs. Will Jacks' record as an Osman is a part-timer, really. He's had a few wickets here or there, but they've bought into Shoaib Bashir for a few years for Australian conditions. So if they're going to play this spinner, dare I say, it'd be quite negative of the England side if they went with Jacks, because they'd be worried about their batting. But that would probably be the best way to go. What I couldn't understand with someone like Shoaib Bashir, who's such a young bowler, and I know conditions in Canberra are completely different, but surely a young spinner who's never bowled with a pink ball would want to go and bowl a few overs with a pink ball in the middle if he's got any chance of playing this week. So, I think they will need someone that can bowl overs, a lot of overs, because I can't imagine it's going to be similar to Perth where you're blowing teams out in 40 overs. I think it's going to be more of a week where you have to do a bit more of the graft out in the middle, and we'll keep mentioning the heat, but you're going to need someone to bowl the overs. I like the idea of Ben Stokes bowling early. I do like that, Mel, because I actually looked at him in Perth and I was crying out for him to bowl sooner in the first innings. He's just got the knack. He was England's best bowler in the summer against India. And he almost has to realise how good a bowler he is. And I watch him captain, and he's got great empathy with his players. And he's an incredible captain because he kind of always gives the players that moment. He's got to realise that for England to win down here, I think he's got to grab the ball earlier. He's the bowler that can really spice up this Test series by getting wickets. He's got that knack. He's got Ian Botham kind of qualities. He doesn't even have to bowl well, and he got 5 wickets in. He was probably the worst of the seamers. He got 5 for in 36 balls, but that's what Ben Stokes does. So I'd like to see him with that pink ball earlier. England have got a chance this week. It's a chance of coming back and doing something that is hard to do, winning in the Gabba, winning in Brisbane. But they have a great chance because they've got the tools. It's just whether they're going to use these tools correctly, and that's the big if.
What's your 8, 9, 10, 11 then?
I'd be bringing. Well, it just depends on. I need to see the pitch. I'm going up there today, but if you're going to go with your best bowlers, Ben Stokes, Brydon Carr, Gus Atkinson, I love Josh Tong. I really like Josh Tong. You look at his record. He got 18 wickets in the summer against India. He got 5 against Australia in the one test in 23. And he's a wicket taker, and you have to get 20 wickets. So Josh Tong will be coming in for me. Obviously, Jofra Archer plays. I've probably picked about 15. You've just
done a Tufnell and given me a yeah. Because you have to leave if you're going to play a spinner. You've got to leave one of those out.
I personally, I don't think I'm playing the spinner.
Okay.
I just don't think England have a good enough spinner for these conditions at the moment. So I'll be playing all my quicks, and if I need a bit of spin, I know Joe's travelled a bit in Australia with the overs that he's bowled. I think England will get 20 wickets if they bowl well with the seam bowlers. I can't imagine Will Jacks or Shoaib Bashir getting 4 or 5 wickets at the Gabba. So I'll be picking my seamers.
Michael Atherton has gone for Will Jacks, and he went back to West Indies beating Australia at the Gabba in early 2024 and highlighted Kevin Sinclair, an off-spinning all-rounder who had a crucial role to play. Unbeaten half-century in the first innings, useful runs in the second, took the wicket of Usman Khawaja in that. He's used that as an example and therefore said he would pick Jacks over Bashir. He hasn't mentioned which, or not that I can see, which of the other bowlers he would leave out. What would you do, Glenn? And I'm asking you what you would do for England to win, not to sabotage.
If you've got a quality spinner, there's no doubt. If the ball seams around, it's going to turn. Shane Warne always said that. Nathan Lyon's record with a pink ball is actually pretty good. I think he's got the second most wickets, tied with Pat Cummins at 43. So a quality spinner can do well in those conditions. But I probably agree with Varney. Their strength is their fast bowling attack. Their spinners not quite probably what you would hope they would be. When England won the toss in Perth, I thought they would have just bowled. With the attack they had, and they love chasing, so that surprised me as well. But I think going into this test up here, I agree with Forney. I think they'll probably bring Josh Tongue in for Mark Wood would be the way to go, and then we'll see how we go from there.
Okay.
Chap, just if you play Will Jacks, he's going to have to bowl a number of overs, because if you're going with the 4 quicks, Ben Stokes being one. We keep talking about Ben, and he's a brilliant bowler, but the one thing that we can't see happen for England is Ben Stokes bowl an 8 to 9 over burst. This is a 5-match series, and we've seen it in the past. We saw it against India in the summer. If you're only playing 4 quicks, which is the usual way to go, but for England seamers in these conditions, if one goes down, and let's be honest, there's always a chance that can happen for both teams. I wouldn't want to see Ben Stokes, Gus Atkinson, Bryden Carr's bowling a huge amount, because I could see 1 or 2 of the bodies, and Jofra Archer. So Will Jacks, if he plays, or Shoaib, they're going to have to bowl a lot of overs.
And Michael talks about the danger of a seamer going down. Is that, Mel, why there is still sort of caution around Cummins?
I think Australia are taking the cautious long-term view with Pat Cummins, remembering that between his first and second tests, he spent 6 years out of the game battling recurring stress injuries. So you look at that history, and he's actually been really durable since then. But he's the captain. The plan is for him to be captain for a while yet, and for him to be playing for a good while yet. So I think they are taking that long-term view, and the fact that Australia won the last test and did it so well with Mitchell Starc leading the test probably made that decision a little bit easier for Australia as well. They said that they would have had the same conversations if Australia had been 1 down, but you can't deny it does make it a little bit easier to make that decision anyway, and say sit another test out and make sure that you're really, really good to go. Because if Australia can manage to come away with the win here, then you go to Adelaide and all of a sudden you've got Pat Cummins back. We don't know at the moment quite where Josh Hazlewood is. So then your attack gets stronger. So, I think that they're just taking that cautious view, because in the past they have made mistakes with Pat Cummins as well, and he's paid a price for it.
Glenn?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it did. If Australia had lost that first test, I reckon Pat Cummins would definitely playing up at the Gabba. I saw him briefly over in Perth there. He'd been bowling well in the nets. He said he was feeling great and ready to go. I think with the fact that Australia won that first test, it just gave a little bit an option just to not rush Cummins back just yet. And hold him off for another test. So, I think that was a crucial win for Australia in respects to Pat Cummins' recovery and when he's coming back to play.
So so he is fit to play, but there's no point rushing him. Is that your understanding?
Maybe maybe it's not quite as black and white as that, but I think there's a fair bit that goes into that. The fact that Josh Hazlewood, there's rumours going around that he's not going to be back for this series at all, which is a massive blow. So yeah, you want to sort of protect. If Pat Cummins came back, played in a little bit earlier and did his back or got injured again, then that probably puts him out for the rest of the season. So it just gave the Aussies another option there.
It's probably worth remembering that before the series, when Pat Cummins got that stress hotspot, it was going to be really tight. They always sort of had said it would be a minimum of 4 weeks after he started bowling for him to be able to play, like a minimum. And he's actually done really well. He was back bowling, looks great, as Glenn said, in the nets in Perth, and he's looked great in the nets here in Brisbane as well. But it was, you talk about that month, I think we're probably about 5 weeks in. So it's still very close to that bare minimum of 4. And normally you would come back from that kind of injury bowling for a certain period of time and then maybe playing, a first class match or is something like that to then get those overs, constant overs in the legs in a match situation. And he's going to be coming in cold to a test match. He's really experienced. He's done that before, but you can understand why they're being careful, because he's almost progressed a little bit faster than what you might normally expect someone to do.
If I'd have said to you, just on going back to Mitchell Starc, Glenn, if I'd have said to you when he came into the Australian squad for his first test that eventually he will go past, because he needs 3 wickets to go past Wasim Akram, but he would go past Wasim Akram as the most successful left-arm quick ever in the history of the game, what would you have said?
I would have said he had the potential. Mitchell Starc has that X factor. He's a wicket taker. When he gets it right with that ball swinging, there's no one, I think, in the world that's a bigger wicket taker than him. Wasim Akram, to me, is one of the most gifted bowlers I've ever seen. What he can do with the ball, swing it both ways, unbelievable. The fact that Mitchell Starc's coming up on par with is an absolute, which is nearly one of the biggest compliments you could give someone else. So, yeah, Mitchell Starc, what I liked about him in the recent sort of year or two is how he's got that control. He knows his game so well now. So when you add control to that sort of X factor, he's pretty special. So, when he first started, you're not sure, but he had that X factor. The fact that he's had that longevity, played 100 tests, over 400 wickets now, closing in on unbelievable record, and shows just how good he is.
It's incredible, isn't it, Michael? Maybe you look at it with nostalgia because Wasim Akram was Wasim Akram, but it is a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah, and to think that he stepped up in that first game when there's no Cummins and Hazlewood, so there was pressure on him to be the senior pro, and he delivered 2 or 3 brilliant spells. It's that wobble seam that he's bowling to the right-handers. He generally used to always try and swing the ball back into the right-hander, and he was a bit wayward. I think you felt that you could score quite quickly off him, and it's that ball that's going across the right-hander now. You can see it when he kind of runs in, he puts his fingers across the seams. I just wonder whether England have any kind of thought of having an early indication. Alistair Cook was saying about the non-striker, when you're facing reverse swing, you'd have the bat in either hand, which way it was going. So you had to trust your partner. I'm a bit wary of that because there's a few dumb people out there that put the bat in the wrong hand and completely do you.
Or just absent-mindedly forget that that's what they were meant to be doing for that particular spell and just start looking somewhere and, I've got the bat in the wrong hand.
But there's these little, 1%ers that you can deliver as a team. And if he is running in with the ball, across the seam like this with his fingers, you do know that that's going to be the ball that's kind of nipping across the right-hander, which was the major threat. With the pink ball, the major threat's going to be that hoop back. He swings a pink ball better than anyone at decent pace. And I guess England this week, if they play Mitchell Starc well, if it's going to be Doggett, if it's going to be Boland, obviously they didn't look like they wanted to use a great deal of Cameron Green, but if they can play Mitchell Starc well this week, it'll go a long way to the result in the game.
What do they do with Usman Khawaja, Glenn?
He's not a spring chicken, is he? I think he's going to be 39 later this month. He's still a great player of spin, but I think the pace bowlers unsettle him a bit now. He just, your reactions are not quite as good as they used to be. So with this England attack with the pace, I'd be so tempted to stick with that second innings with Travis Head coming up the order. Then you can strengthen that middle order, whether Josh Inglis or or someone like that comes in. So we'll wait and see. But I wonder how many matches Uzi has left in him at this level.
What are the indications, Mel?
Well, he was at training yesterday. He wasn't there the previous day, but he was back.
Was he at golf the previous day?
Oh, don't.
Just wondered.
Mitchell Starc played golf before the first test and took all those wickets. So, I
think all cricketers are golfers these days, and they play an occasional game of cricket.
No, it's all about. I don't know if it's taken over here in England. It's all about the paddle. Paddle is the new golf. For cricketers, he was there and batted for a decent period of time in the nets. My feeling has always been, even after Perth, that they would play Usman Khawaja if he was fit for this test. I don't think they like to be seen as reactive. I don't think they like to change a winning team, rightly or wrongly. I think England would prefer to see Usman Khawaja opening rather than Travis Head. So you look at what the opposition would want you to do. But I do have a feeling that they might stick with him. One thing that I thought was really interesting during the week, Andrew McDonald, and actually asked Travis Head about this as well. It was talking about that they have been talking about for quite a long time, the Australian team, in changing the batting order around within tests from innings to innings. So obviously we saw Marnus and Travis open in Perth when Usman Khawaja couldn't take the field. But that idea of Travis Head coming in as almost a pinch hitter when the circumstances suggest it could work at the top of the order, they've actually kind of been toying with that idea for quite a while. So the fact that it worked so successfully in Perth makes me wonder if we might see that a little bit more in general from the Australian side, and perhaps throughout this series when they see that there's a moment that they could take advantage in letting someone loose like Travis Head. And he has said himself that he wanted to step in as opener back when they were experimenting with Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne, but after David Warner's retirement. He's been keen to do that, but it was sort of seen as, okay, you can do it in maybe in India or in Asia, it's okay, but not in Australia. So that was a significant moment, I think, for a number of reasons beyond the result of that first test in maybe how Australia approached their batting lineup.
You nodded there, Michael. England would prefer Khawaja opening to Head, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's averaging 18 in the last couple of years against pace. So, I think England feel that they can control us, but I don't think they feel that he's going to hurt them too much. He's been a wonderful player, but, when you're nearly 39 years of age and you're having to face Jofra Archer and Bryden Carson and Gus Atkinson at 85, 90 miles an hour, it's not easy, but I'll be intrigued to see. I would think he's going to play him. And if you're going to drop someone like Usman Khawaja, you wouldn't have picked him in the squad. Now he's in the squad. I think he'll play. I do think England have got a chance this week because if Usman plays at the top of the order, there's a lot of pressure on him. I know it's his home venue and he generally plays nicely there, but I do think there are a small few cracks in the Australian side that England could target. I mean, they targeted that first day brilliantly in Perth, and there was cracks starting to open up within a few hours. They'd lost the game. So this Australian side are a good team, but they're certainly beatable. It's just about playing strong cricket for a long period of time. You just can't bat 67.5 overs in a test match. You just can't. You've got to bat at least 70, 80 overs per innings. If they can get something like 600 runs in the test match, 650, they'll have a great chance. That's the big if. Can they bat a period of time to get that amount of runs? If they do, under Ben Stokes and his captaincy and how clever he is out in the outfield, I think they'll create opportunities. It's just a matter of can the batters show up and just bat with a little bit more sense.
Can you envisage a scenario like that, Glenn, where England win it like this?
Well, Well, they'll have to win it, really, won't they? To go 2-0 down in an Ashes series, the series is basically all over. So I think for the England fans, for the state of this whole series, England really need to bounce back in this Test match and walk away with a win under their belt. And to go into Adelaide 1-1, it's series on. If they go in Adelaide 2-0, it's basically game over.
1-1 or 2-0 going into Adelaide, Mel. What's your prediction? I'm not asking. I know what Glenn's prediction is, obviously, but
I always say predictions are a mud's game, but
they are, Mel. But they're always a good way to finish a show.
They are, and look, there's an Australian that one out the window. That's I'm going all in. I never do this, but I'm going all in on England to bounce back. They have managed in the past to pull out wins when you least expect it. I said before this series, I did feel it could swing one way and another, sort of bit dramatically along the way. I never do this. I'm all in on England.
Wow. 1-1, Michael?
Well, the only time in my time that England have won down here, they won 3 of the last 4 Test matches. So that's exactly what this England side have to do. Do I think they're going to do it? No.
Oh, well, there we go. We ended on a positive there as well. Mel and Michael and Glenn, lovely. It's been a joy with it so wet and windy here all day and all evening to see 2 of you sat in early morning Australian sunshine. That's just added to the pack. Oh, thanks, Michael. What a lovely view. Clear blue sky, 2 wispy clouds, couple of palm trees. Lovely. Thank you very much for that. Continue to enjoy the weather, the 3 of you.